The screech of metal grinding against metal filled the bridge, accompanied by flickering overhead lights that cast wild shadows across the interior. The Genesis V, humanity's first prototype human warship, was alive in ways its creators had only half understood. Long before the alarms blared, the ship had stirred, roused from a dormant state by the unmistakable signals of an alien incursion. It wasn't just the AI, affectionately named Vera, that bristled with readiness, it was the ship itself. Rumors among the crew claimed the Genesis V had a mind of its own. Today, it was about to prove them right. "Captain Rhodes, you're gonna want to see this," muttered Lieutenant Barrett, his voice tight with disbelief. His gaze was locked on the translucent holoscreen that dominated the bridge's center. The data streaming across it painted a grim picture, an alien fleet, 20 strong, barreling through the sector with the speed and precision of a hunting pack. Captain Alara Rhodes, a woman with prematurely silvered hair and eyes sharp enough to pierce through a lie, leaned forward in her command chair. "See this, Lieutenant. Unless it's a good joke, I'm not laughing." Barrett exhaled sharply, motioning toward the screen. "They're coming for us, ma'am. Directly. Looks like they've bypassed the entire defense grid. It's like they knew we were here." "Of course they do." Alara's voice was steady, but her knuckles whitened where she gripped the chair's arms. "We're the prize. The Genesis V isn't just a warship. It's proof humanity won't roll over." The words were meant to galvanize, but on the fringes of the bridge, nervous glances darted like fireflies. Everyone aboard knew what the ship represented, humanity's last-ditch gamble in a galaxy growing increasingly hostile. Alien incursions weren't new, humanity's victories, however, were rare and bitterly fought. In the corner of the bridge, Chief Engineer Milo Thatcher leaned against a console, chewing absently on a toothpick. "You know," he drawled, "we could always give them a tour of the new experimental weapons system. Something tells me they'd appreciate the craftsmanship." Rhodes shot him a look that was half grimace, half smile. "Milo, last time you tested that system, you fried half the ship's subsystems." "Yeah, but what a fireworks show," Milo quipped, flicking his toothpick into a waste bin. "What's a little collateral damage between friends?" Before Alara could respond, Vera's voice crackled over the intercom, cool and clinical. "Incoming communication from the enemy fleet." A hush fell over the bridge. Communication? Aliens rarely announced themselves before an attack. This wasn't a demand for surrender, it was psychological warfare. Alara squared her shoulders. "Patch it through." The voice that followed was deep and guttural, each syllable laden with menace. "Humans. Relinquish the Genesis V. This vessel does not belong to you." "Sure it does," Milo muttered under his breath, earning a stifled laugh from Barrett. Alara rose, stepping toward the comm console. "This is Captain Rhodes of the Genesis V. I'm afraid your request is denied. Anything else I can help you with? A map back to your homeworld, perhaps?" A low growl echoed in response. "This is not a negotiation. That ship is an affront. Surrender it, or we will tear it apart and scatter its ashes." The transmission ended abruptly. Alara stood in silence for a moment, her jaw tight. Then she turned to Vera's interface. "Vera, tell me our odds." The AI responded immediately. "Against 20 alien vessels, our probability of survival is approximately 12%. This calculation assumes maximum performance from all systems and personnel." Barrett muttered something that sounded suspiciously like, "Great. Good thing we're not betting types," Alara said briskly, cutting through the tension. "Vera, raise shields. Begin evasive maneuvers. Milo, get me a miracle. Everyone else, battle stations." As the crew scrambled, Alara felt the weight of command settle onto her shoulders. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for the hope humanity had pinned on this ship. She wouldn't let that hope be snuffed out. The Genesis V shuddered as the alien fleet fired its opening salvo. Energy blasts raked against the shields, sending tremors through the ship. On the bridge, Milo cursed under his breath as a console sparked beside him. This is just the appetizer, he muttered, his fingers flying across a keyboard. Wait till they break out the big guns. We can't let them pin us down, Alara said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Barrett, what's the status on that asteroid field? Barrett's fingers danced over the controls, pulling up a tactical map. 2 clicks starboard. It's dense, but we might lose them in there. Alara nodded. Do it. Vera, plot a course. Milo, keep those engines humming. Engines, sure. Shields, not so much, Milo retorted. We're running hot already. The ship banked hard, its engines roaring as it veered toward the asteroid field. The alien ships pursued relentlessly, their formation tightening like a noose. On the outer rim of the bridge, Tactical Officer Priya Anand squinted at her display. They're not falling for it, she said. They're matching our trajectory. Then let's give them something else to chase, Alara said. Vera, deploy decoy drones. A flurry of small, glowing orbs erupted from the ship's aft, each mimicking the Genesis V's energy signature. For a moment, the alien fleet hesitated, splitting their fire between the real ship and its false counterparts. Good. That bought us some breathing room, Alara said, but her relief was short-lived. Milo, I need to know, are we ready to fight back? Milo hesitated. We've got the rail cannons online, but the big gun, the prototype, it's not exactly stable. Define not exactly stable, Alara said, her voice dangerously calm. Milo winced. Well, it could obliterate their flagship. Or it could backfire and turn us into cosmic confetti. Alara's gaze didn't waver. We'll take the risk. Prep the weapon. As Milo disappeared below deck to ready the ship's most experimental armament, Alara turned back to the tactical display. The asteroid field loomed ahead, its jagged rocks spinning lazily in the void. It was both a haven and a hazard, offering cover but threatening to tear the ship apart if the navigation was off by even a fraction. Vera, take us in, Alara ordered. The Genesis V plunged into the field, its shields flaring as smaller rocks bounced harmlessly off its surface. Behind it, the alien ships followed, their formation fracturing as they struggled to maneuver through the debris. Priya, target their lead ship, Alara commanded. Let's see if we can make them regret this chase. The rail cannons hummed to life, their barrels glowing with energy. A moment later, they unleashed a volley of kinetic projectiles, each one tearing through the void with devastating speed. The lead alien ship shuddered under the impact, its hull splintering as a secondary explosion consumed its engines. A cheer rose from the bridge, but Alara silenced it with a sharp gesture. Don't celebrate yet. We've only just begun. As the battle raged, the stakes became painfully clear. The Genesis V was humanity's best chance at survival. If it fell, so did the last flicker of hope. Alara clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. They wouldn't just survive, they would win. The asteroid field wasn't just a battlefield, it was a crucible. The Genesis V twisted and dove through the chaotic labyrinth of rock and debris, each turn demanding precision that left no room for error. The ship groaned as alien fire raked its shields, the pressure building with every passing second. Shields at 43%, Captain, Vera's voice announced with eerie calm. Alara Rhodes tightened her grip on the console. Sweat beaded on her temple, but her focus was unyielding. Milo, I need an update on that miracle. Milo Thatcher's voice crackled over the comm, a mix of frustration and defiance. Working on it, Cap. The prototype's charging, but the energy levels are unstable. I'm slapping this thing together with duct tape and a prayer. We'll take whatever prayers you've got, Alara said. Barrett, what's our status on the asteroid field? Barrett's fingers flew across the controls. We're threading the needle, but they're adapting. 4 of their ships are sticking to our tail, and it looks like they're trying to flank us. Priya Anand, seated at tactical, swore under her breath. They're splitting into 2 groups, Captain. If they cut us off. They won't, Alara interrupted. Her voice was steel. Vera, calculate the trajectory of those flanking ships. Priya, load the remaining rail cannons. Target their engines. If they're going to trap us, they'll need to do it in pieces. Yes, ma'am, Priya said, her hands a blur as she entered firing coordinates. The cannons fired a deafening salvo, and 2 alien vessels veered off course, one spiraling into a rogue asteroid with an explosion that lit up the void. The momentary victory was short-lived. On the holoscreen, Barrett highlighted a new cluster of red blips moving into position. They're bringing reinforcements. I'm counting 5 more ships entering the field. Elara muttered a curse under her breath. Milo, how much longer until we're ready to fire that weapon? 5 minutes if I don't die of stress first. Milo shouted back. In the background, the sound of tools clanging and electrical surges added to the urgency. You want this thing to work, or you want it to explode? Both, preferably, Elara snapped, then took a breath. Vera, highlight potential exit points from the asteroid field. Vera responded without hesitation. There's an opening approximately 3,200 meters ahead. However, enemy vessels are moving to secure it. Of course, they are, Elara muttered. Priya, Barrett, coordinate fire on anything that gets too close. We're punching our way out. The Genesis V jolted as another barrage struck its shields. Sparks rained from the ceiling, and the bridge filled with the acrid tang of burning circuitry. Priya growled as she wrestled with the targeting system, which was beginning to flicker under the strain. Captain, we've got a bigger problem, Priya said. One of their ships is deploying drones, looks like they're scanning for weak points in our shields. Elara's jaw tightened. And if they find one? They'll focus fire and carve us up like a holiday roast. The bridge fell silent for a beat, the implications sinking in. Then Elara barked an order. Barrett, bring up the drone schematics. Milo, can we disrupt their signals? I'll have to improvise, Milo said, his voice strained. I can rig the comm array to send out a burst signal, but it'll fry our external communications for the next hour. Do it, Elara ordered. We'll manage without comms. Below deck, Milo worked with feverish speed. He yanked open a panel, exposing a tangled mess of wires and circuits, and began rerouting power. Around him, the ship's vibrations grew more violent as alien weapons hammered the shields. You're not blowing up on me, girl, Milo muttered to the ship, as if his words alone could hold it together. We've come too far for that. Back on the bridge, Vera's voice broke through the din. Signal disruption activated. Enemy drones have been rendered inoperable. Cheers erupted from the crew, but Elara raised a hand to silence them. Stay focused. This isn't over. The alien fleet wasn't letting up. Even as the Genesis V cleared the denser part of the asteroid field, the remaining ships pressed their attack. One particularly aggressive vessel, a sleek, black monstrosity bristling with energy weapons, seemed to be coordinating the others. Its movements were precise, its strategy unrelenting. They're protecting that flagship, Barrett noted, his eyes locked on the holoscreen. It's the brain of this operation. Then we cut off the head, Elara said, her tone decisive. Milo, can the prototype handle a direct hit on their flagship? If you're asking if it'll work, the answer is probably, Milo replied. If you're asking if we'll survive it, that's less clear. Good enough for me, Elara said. Priya, line up the shot. Barrett, feed targeting data to Milo. Vera, redirect all non-essential power to the weapon. Captain, Priya said, hesitating for the first time, if this backfires. It won't, Elara interrupted, her voice steady. We've got one shot at this, and we're taking it. Humanity didn't build this ship to run away. As the crew executed her orders, the Genesis V began to charge its experimental weapon. The ship's interior lights dimmed, and a low hum filled the air, growing steadily louder. Outside, the alien fleet seemed to sense the impending threat. They redoubled their efforts, their fire hammering the Genesis V with a fury born of desperation. Shields at 19%, Vera announced. Structural integrity is deteriorating. We just need another minute, Elara said, though the bridge crew could hear the tension in her voice. Suddenly, the alien flagship shifted its tactics. Instead of maintaining its distance, it surged forward, closing the gap between itself and the Genesis V. Barrett's eyes widened. "They're going to ram us." "Vera, full reverse," Elara commanded. The Genesis V lurched backward, its engines straining against the sudden maneuver. The alien flagship barreled toward them, its hull glowing with the energy of a final, suicidal charge. "Milo, tell me we're ready," Elara shouted. "Not yet," Milo yelled back. "But I can't stop it now." The alien flagship loomed large on the view screen, its bulk filling the horizon. The tension on the bridge was palpable. Priya gritted her teeth, her fingers tightening around the controls. "Captain," Priya said, her voice low, "it's now or never." Elara hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded. "Fire." The prototype weapon unleashed its fury. A beam of pure energy erupted from the Genesis V, its brightness searing against the black of space. It struck the alien flagship dead center, piercing through its shields and hull like a spear through paper. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then, the alien flagship exploded in a cataclysmic fireball, its debris scattering in all directions. The remaining enemy ships hesitated, their coordination shattered. On the Genesis V, the crew erupted into cheers. "We did it!" Priya exclaimed, her voice breaking with relief. But the victory was short-lived. As the flagship's debris cleared, a new threat emerged, a massive alien battleship, easily twice the size of the one they had just destroyed. Its weapons glowed ominously, and it was heading straight for them. Elara stared at the view screen, her expression unreadable. Then, with a determined gleam in her eye, she turned to the crew. "Looks like they brought their big brother. Time to show them what we're made of." The battle was far from over. The alien battleship loomed like a harbinger of doom, its silhouette a monstrous contrast against the pinprick stars of deep space. Towering and bristling with weapons, it advanced with deliberate menace, dwarfing the Genesis V. Even on the view screen, its scale was overwhelming, each turret and port a testament to an enemy that had mastered destruction. "Analysis, Vera," Elara demanded, her voice cutting through the tense silence on the bridge. "Threat level extreme," Vera replied without hesitation. "This vessel is equipped with multi-phase particle cannons, energy disruptors, and a graviton beam capable of immobilizing us. Shields at 78%, weapon systems primed. Distance to engagement, 6,000 meters and closing. Any good news?" Milo's voice crackled through the comm from the engine room, strained but still carrying his trademark sarcasm. "Yes," Vera added. "Probability of survival, 7%. Barrett groaned audibly. "Vera, you're a real optimist." Elara ignored the banter, her sharp gaze fixed on the holographic tactical map. "Priya, get me a read on their weak points. I want vulnerabilities, no matter how small." Priya's fingers danced over her console as data streamed in. Her brow furrowed. "Captain, their shielding is double-layered. Outer shields deflect energy-based attacks, inner shields absorb kinetic impacts. Their only blind spots are near the exhaust ports, but they're narrow, precision firing required." Elara straightened, her mind working rapidly. "Narrow isn't impossible. Barrett, plot a course to keep us moving, make us a hard target. Priya, arm the rail cannons and focus on those blind spots. Milo, is the prototype weapon back online?" "Technically," Milo replied, his voice tinged with unease. "But firing it again will push the reactor into meltdown territory. We'd be lucky to get a single shot before everything goes kaboom." "Let's not die with a full magazine," Elara quipped. "Keep it primed, but it's a last resort. We'll need every other system to pull this off." The ship jolted violently as the alien battleship fired its opening salvo. A trio of energy blasts seared through the void, narrowly missing the Genesis V as Barrett executed a desperate evasive roll. The bridge lights flickered, and sparks burst from an overloaded console. "That was just a warning," Barrett muttered, his knuckles white as he gripped the controls. Then let's show them we don't scare easy, Elara said. Priya, fire rail cannons. The Genesis V retaliated, unleashing a storm of projectiles. The kinetic slugs streaked across space, glowing with the friction of their velocity. Two found their mark, striking near the battleship's exhaust ports. The impacts rippled against the inner shields but failed to penetrate. Barely a scratch, Priya growled. It's a start, Elara said, her tone resolute. Barrett, bring us in closer. We'll draw their fire and look for another angle. Closer? Barrett echoed, his voice incredulous. Are you trying to get us killed? Not today, Elara said, a ghost of a smile on her lips. We need to make them overcommit. The Genesis V darted through the void, a nimble predator against a hulking behemoth. The alien battleship responded with relentless fire, its particle cannons carving glowing scars across the asteroid field. Each near miss rattled the Genesis V, its shields groaning under the strain. Shields at 12%, Vera reported. Structural integrity failing in sectors C and D. Milo. Elara shouted into the comm, I need more power to the shields. Captain, I'm holding this reactor together with chewing gum and hope. Milo yelled back. If I divert any more power, we'll lose weapons. Then keep us together long enough to shoot. Elara snapped. The battleship unleashed its graviton beam, a pulsating wave of energy that latched onto the Genesis V. The ship bucked violently, caught in the gravitational pull, as alarms blared throughout the bridge. We're being dragged in. Barrett yelled, fighting the controls. Elara's mind raced. If they didn't break free, they'd be sitting ducks for the battleship's next barrage. Vera, fire all thrusters on maximum. Milo, vent plasma from the starboard engines, give us a push. The Genesis V roared in protest as its engines flared to life, straining against the graviton beam. Milo's plasma venting maneuver created a burst of force that sent the ship lurching sideways, breaking the beam's hold. We're free! Barrett called, his relief palpable. Not for long, Priya warned. The battleship's charging its main cannon. Elara's heart sank as she saw the energy buildup on the holodisplay. The alien weapon glowed ominously, its power spiraling toward a deadly crescendo. How much time? 30 seconds, Priya said grimly. Elara turned to the comm. Milo, what's the status on the prototype? Milo hesitated. It's ready, if you don't mind the reactor turning into a miniature sun. Elara clenched her fists. They were out of options. Do it. Barrett, line us up with the battleship's main cannon. Priya, aim for their power core. If we're going down, we're taking them with us. The bridge fell silent as the crew absorbed the gravity of her words. Then, one by one, they steeled themselves. If this was their final stand, they would make it count. The Genesis V roared toward the battleship, a lone spark hurtling toward a roaring inferno. The alien vessel unleashed its cannon, a blinding beam of energy that tore through space. At the last possible moment, Barrett executed a daring roll, narrowly dodging the blast. The Genesis V shuddered as residual energy slammed into its shields. Now, Priya! Elara shouted. Priya fired the prototype weapon. The beam surged forth, brighter and more volatile than before. It pierced through the battleship's outer shields, tearing into its hull. Sparks and flames erupted from the impact point, but the weapon's strain caused a cascade of failures aboard the Genesis V, consoles exploded, and the ship's lights flickered ominously. Direct hit. Priya cried, but her elation was short-lived. Their core's destabilizing, but it's not enough. They're still operational. Elara gritted her teeth. Barrett, take us in closer. If we have to, we'll ram them. The Genesis V charged forward, its engines burning with desperation. The battleship's weapon systems sputtered, struggling to recover from the damage. But as the Genesis V approached, the battleship unleashed a desperate salvo, its cannons blazing. The smaller warship dodged and weaved, each maneuver a gamble with death. Inside, the crew held their breath, knowing that one wrong move could end it all. The Genesis V closed the final gap, its nose aimed directly at the battleship's power core. Illyra's hands clenched the armrests of her chair as the seconds stretched into an eternity. Milo, release the reactor's safeties. Overload it. Are you insane? Milo shouted. Do it. Illyra barked. With a reluctant curse, Milo obeyed. The Genesis V's reactor surged, its energy output skyrocketing beyond safe limits. The ship trembled as if on the verge of tearing itself apart. At the last moment, Illyra shouted, Vera, eject the core. The reactor core shot out of the Genesis V, hurtling toward the alien battleship. The resulting explosion was cataclysmic, a supernova of energy that consumed both ships in a blinding flash. When the light faded, the alien battleship was gone, reduced to a field of glowing debris. The Genesis V drifted, battered and broken but miraculously intact. On the bridge, the crew stared at the view screen in stunned silence. Did we? Priya began, her voice barely a whisper. We did, Illyra said, slumping back in her chair. Exhaustion and relief washed over her as she added, but we're not out of this yet. Ahead of them, the remnants of the alien fleet regrouped, a smaller but still formidable force. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, humanity's chances didn't seem so bleak. The Genesis V was a drifting shadow against the aftermath of battle. Glowing debris from the destroyed alien battleship shimmered in the void, casting pale light across the battered hull of humanity's prototype warship. Inside, the bridge was quiet, save for the hum of emergency power and the distant crackle of damaged systems. The alien fleet, though reduced, had not fled. Their remaining ships circled like predators assessing a wounded beast. Illyra Rhodes stood unsteadily from her command chair. A gash above her brow sent a thin line of blood trickling down her temple, but she ignored it. The bridge was in shambles. Consoles sparked, panels hung loose, and the smell of burnt circuitry lingered like a ghost. Status report, she ordered, her voice hoarse but commanding. Barrett coughed as he waved smoke away from his face. Engines are offline. Shields are gone. We've got limited weapons, maybe enough for one last volley. And life support is running on borrowed time. Illyra nodded, her mind racing. What about the alien fleet? Priya squinted at her flickering console. They're holding position. It's like they're waiting for us to make the first move. Or they're deciding how best to finish us, Barrett muttered. Illyra ignored the remark, turning to Vera's interface. Vera, options? The AI's voice was calm as ever, though tinged with an urgency Illyra rarely heard. Our offensive capabilities are critically diminished. The remaining enemy vessels significantly outmatch us in firepower and mobility. Probability of victory, 0.2%. Barrett let out a low whistle. That's not the kind of pep talk we needed. Illyra pressed her lips into a thin line. Vera, what's the one thing they don't expect us to do? There was a brief pause before the AI responded. Survive. Illyra almost smiled. Then let's give them a surprise. Below deck, Milo Thatcher scrambled over a maze of exposed wires and shattered panels and engineering. The core was gone, ejected in their desperate gambit, but the ship still had power reserves trickling from auxiliary batteries. It was enough to keep the lights on, but not much more. Milo's voice crackled over the comm to the bridge. Captain, whatever you're planning, make it quick. We're one system failure away from becoming a floating tomb. Noted, Illyra replied. How's the power to the rail cannons? Barely there, Milo said. You'll get one shot, and that's being optimistic. One shot is all we need, she said, her confidence steady. Focus on stabilizing life support. I'll handle the rest. You've got it, Milo said, though his tone suggested he was bracing for the worst. On the bridge, Illyra leaned over Priya's console, examining the layout of the remaining alien ships. They had regrouped into a tight formation, their movements methodical and deliberate. Each ship covered the others, their overlapping fields of fire ensuring no blind spots. It was a near-perfect defensive posture. But near perfect wasn't invulnerable. Priya, highlight the smallest vessel in their formation, Alara said. Priya tapped a few commands, isolating one of the alien frigates. Got it. Smallest ship, least armored, but still a tough nut to crack. That's our target, Alara said. If we can disable it, their formation will break. Barrett, get us moving, quietly. Engines are down, Captain, Barrett reminded her. Moving anywhere isn't exactly in the cards. Alara turned to Vera. Can we use the remaining thrusters to reposition? Affirmative, Vera replied. Repositioning will deplete our reserve power by 42%. Do it, Alara said. Priya, calculate a trajectory that keeps us out of their firing arcs as long as possible. We need to get within range of that frigate. The Genesis V shuddered as its thrusters ignited, pushing the battered ship into a slow, deliberate drift. The alien fleet didn't react immediately, their formation holding steady. But as the Genesis V edged closer, a flicker of movement rippled through their ranks. They've noticed us, Priya said, her voice tight. Let them, Alara said. Barrett, keep us steady. Priya, charge the rail cannon. The minutes that followed stretched into an eternity. The Genesis V drifted through the void, its every movement a calculated risk. The alien fleet remained wary, their formation tightening but not advancing. They're waiting for us to make a mistake, Priya said. Then we won't give them one, Alara replied. Ready on my mark. The rail cannon hummed to life, its charge draining the last dregs of power from the ship's reserves. The alien frigate loomed larger on the view screen, its engines glowing faintly as it adjusted its position. Steady, Alara said, her voice low. Steady. The moment stretched, every breath on the bridge held in suspense. Then, with a flash of resolve, Alara shouted, Fire! The rail cannon unleashed its payload, a single projectile streaking across the void. The crew watched in tense silence as the slug slammed into the alien frigate's rear engine. The resulting explosion was smaller than expected but effective. The frigate spun out of control, careening into the nearest vessel in the formation. The alien fleet faltered, their tight-knit coordination unraveling. Ships scrambled to avoid collisions, their overlapping fire zones disrupted. They're breaking formation. Priya exclaimed. Alara didn't waste a second. Barrett, plot a course through the gap. We're getting out of here. The Genesis V limped forward, slipping through the chaos as the alien fleet scrambled to recover. It was a desperate gamble, but it worked. The remaining ships hesitated, caught between pursuing their target and regrouping. As the Genesis V cleared the immediate danger, Vera's voice broke through the tense silence. Incoming transmission from the alien fleet. Alara's brow furrowed. They're calling us now? Patch it through. The guttural voice that followed was unmistakably hostile, though tinged with reluctant respect. Humans. Your defiance is noted. Retreat while you still can. This encounter is not over. Alara stared at the comm interface, her expression unreadable. Then she leaned forward, her voice cold and unyielding. Noted. See you next time. The transmission ended, and the bridge erupted into exhausted cheers. For the first time, the Genesis V wasn't just a prototype warship, it was a symbol. Humanity's resilience had turned the tide. Later, in the quiet of the damaged but intact bridge, the crew gathered around Alara. Milo appeared, smudged with grease but grinning like a man who had just cheated death. Well, he said, collapsing into a chair, we're alive. Barely. And the ship? Alara asked. She'll hold, Milo said. But she's gonna need a hell of a tune-up. Alara allowed herself a rare smile. We'll manage. Humanity didn't build this ship to stay pretty. Barrett chuckled. We gave them something to think about, didn't we? Priya nodded, her expression one of quiet pride. We didn't just survive. We showed them what humanity's capable of. Alara stood, her gaze sweeping over her crew. We're not just capable. We're fighters. And the Genesis V isn't just a warship. She's a promise. To every species out there watching, humanity won't back down. The crew erupted into applause, their exhaustion giving way to a renewed sense of purpose. For the Genesis V, this was just the beginning.